What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network short stream tonight. Only got 5 games upcoming after the morning games, only 3 on the afternoon slate, 1 on Sunday night and 1 on Monday night. Of course, following up from our discussion yesterday, I'm sure everyone has heard the news by now. We have our first cancellation due to COVID, which complete bummer for everyone involved. Best wishes to anyone that's contracted it. Sounds like at this point, everyone that has it is asymptomatic. Hopefully that stays the course. We're really hoping that there is not any additional complications here, and hopefully the Titans are able to get back on schedule as part of the Week 5 slate. It is something to monitor, though. Bear this in mind. This could linger into Week 5 if there's continued positive tests. There's a waiting period in which players have to continue to test negative before they're allowed to come back into the training facility. So this could linger. So keep an eye on that. Make sure that is on the back burner, but praying that that doesn't come to that. That being said, going to be some weird pivot plays that you're going to have to make. So I'll try to at least give a little bit more information on the fringier players here in case you're having to make a last second change to some of the players that we normally wouldn't start. But we'll give you guys that information as we go. All right, so again, like I said, 5 games here. We got 3 games on the afternoon slate, beginning with the New York Giants and Los Angeles Rams. So looking at the New York Giants-Los Angeles Rams game, the Giants 0-3, the Rams 2-1, really should have been 3-0, but technically also should have been 2-1. Week 1, they had a bad pass interference call go in their favor, and Week 3, they had a bad pass interference call go against them, cost them the W against the Bills. So karma, if you will, but Rams definitely looking like contenders, whereas the Giants have been one of the worst teams in the league. We'll see if they can actually do anything on offense this week. Obviously, without Saquon Barkley, it's been a bit of a mess, and their offensive line has been terrible, whereas the Rams have been firing on all cylinders on offense and have also looked pretty decent on defense as well. This one is a 48.5 over-under, and the Rams are favored to win this one by 12. So Vegas does not like the Giants in this one at all, and I do not blame them. The Giants are giving up the 9th most points to running backs, 13th most to wide receivers. They've been okay against tight ends and quarterbacks, but again, I think that's more by nature of the way that the games have been played. The Rams have also been basically below average in terms of stopping quarterbacks through tight ends, so an exploitable defense by in terms of the way that we're looking at it. Now, they have played Dallas and the Bills and the Eagles, so 2 really high potent offenses there. We'll see what their offense and defense looks like against a easier matchup. This is their first kind of shoe-in game, if you will. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm really liking the Rams in this one. Overall, looking on the Rams side first, we're going to start all of your main guys here. Jared Goff, I think, is a good stream play this week. Cooper Kupp had a great game last week. Should have another good one here. Robert Woods, solid every single week. And I think you can throw Higbee back out there, even though he's been up and down thus far. Rams defense also makes for a really good play here. The question that I know a lot of people will probably be asking is, do I go with Henderson or Brown? I think at this point you should know Henderson is the guy. Cam Akers most likely to sit again, and Malcolm Brown is not someone that even really needs to be rostered at this point. Maybe as insurance for Henderson, but I think once Akers comes back, Brown is pretty much relegated to that third string role where he won't see the field too much. Henderson has looked really good, and definitely worth a start here against this poor Giants defense. So you can start pretty much everyone on the Rams side that is at least in the starting position. Not going to jump to the exterior options with like Josh Reynolds and Van Jefferson. They've been splitting way too many touches. It's been concentrated with Kupp and Woods, as we kind of expected it would be. So they're not playing anyone else here on the Rams. On the Giants side, Darius Slayton definitely always has the ability to go off. He's had a lot of blow-up games in his career and a lot of down games. If there's going to be a game where he actually comes off and does something really good, I think this could be a good game for him to do it. We just saw the Bills light this secondary up, and even the Eagles didn't look too bad against the Rams. So if there's going to be a game that Slayton is going to put up multiple scores, it could be this one. And then Evan Ingram, we got to give him one last chance. I know he hasn't had a tight end one start yet, which is very disappointing considering what we were hoping for him, but they have played a really rough schedule, and I think things ease up a little bit here with the Rams. So if you have Ingram, you can give him one last run here before you throw him on your bench for a while. We're not playing Daniel Jones. I mean, maybe you could talk me into streaming him if you had way worse options, but we're not playing any of the running backs here until we see that situation work itself out. Golden Tate is a guy that you could talk me into playing. I don't have him in my top 36, so that's why he's in my second guess category, but I do think that he has a decent enough game that if you lost Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, a guy like that, and you see Golden Tate on the waiver wire, definitely worth picking up and throwing in this week if you need a spot start. Giants defense, I don't think anyone's starting them at all at this point. Rams should be able to win this one pretty handedly at home. I have them winning 35-20. Should be a pretty easy game for them. So let's jump over and let's talk about the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs. So definitely one of the more interesting games on the week. I'm actually really surprised to see that Las Vegas has the Chiefs winning this one by 7. I know the Chiefs are going to be heavy favorites at pretty much every game they play, but the Patriots should be able to play them pretty tough. We saw the Patriots give up a lot of points to the Seahawks, but other than that, their defense has been pretty strong, whereas the Chiefs defense has also been pretty strong. We see, they have been able to give up the second least points to fantasy wide receivers. So I know that might cause you to have a little bit of pause here, but I think there's going to be enough scoring that defenses won't matter as much in this one. It should be a high scoring affair. 53 over under on the week, one of the higher ones. And like I said, Chiefs favored to win this one by 7, giving them an applied point total of 30. Of course, you're going to be starting all your Chiefs in this one. That is easy. You're always going to start Mahomes, regardless of the matchup. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. You don't need me to tell you to start those guys. The real question is, are you going to be starting a guy like Sammy Watkins or Mecole Hardman? We saw Sammy Watkins have a down game on Monday night, whereas Mecole Hardman went off for that touchdown, but he's still playing a very low snap percentage share here, and he's still playing behind Demarcus Robinson in terms of number of routes run. So I think Mecole Hardman is going to be one of those guys that you're going to be banging your head against the wall, trying to chase points. If you're trying to throw him back out there again this week, be prepared for him to potentially put up a dud. If I had to pivot to another option here, it would be Watkins over Hardman, but I would hopefully you guys don't have to start either of them. The Chiefs defense is, I guess, interesting in this one because they have been pretty good for fantasy, but against the Patriots, I'm expecting the Patriots to put up a pretty good fight here. So I'm not going to be throwing the Chiefs defense out there unless I have to. And we're not going to play any of the other running back options here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the guy. He's going to remain the guy going forward. Jumping over to the Patriots side, though, Cam Newton had a bit of a down week against the Raiders last week, but he's not going to have the privilege of being able to do that again. We saw him perform really well in a tough matchup against the Seahawks in week 2. Look for another matchup like that here. And although the Chiefs have been good at shutting down fantasy wide receivers, Edelman is going to have a good game. He's going to bounce back. If Newton has to throw the ball a lot more, he's going to go to Edelman a lot. The real question is, can you start N'Keal Harry? N'Keal Harry has put up some decent fantasy numbers, but he hasn't looked good from a football perspective. So at some point, you have to imagine that they're going to pivot to other options, especially in the run game. They get James White back this week, so that muddies the backfield a little bit, and they may even be able to activate Damian Harris as well, making this backfield even more of a headache. So if you had to start one, I know Burkhead had 2 good weeks in a row, but with James White coming back, it makes it really hard to trust either of these guys. I have White ranked just ahead of Burkhead, so if you had to choose between those two, I'd probably still go with White. But if you're in a pinch and you need to start Burkhead, I won't talk you out of it. Sony Michel, to me, is an absolute bench in this one. Based on the way the Chiefs just played against the Ravens, I'm expecting them to put up a lot of points early, basically taking the breath out of the run game for the Patriots. They're going to have to throw if they want to win this game, which is why I'm confident in starting a guy like Edelman here. I don't think you can play the Patriots defense. You can't really ever play defense against the Chiefs if you want to have some fantasy points on your roster that day. So that being said, I do think the Chiefs will win this one, but I actually have the Patriots covering the spread there. I see the Chiefs winning this one in a tight game. I got the Chiefs 31 to the Patriots 28. All right, let's jump into the Bills and the Raiders. Now, the Bills are 3-0 and the Raiders are 2-1, so both a little bit of surprise for both of these teams. I think we expected the Bills to be good, but not as good as they are on offense. And the Raiders have been pretty surprising, with the exception of their loss last week. Have looked pretty good on offense and decent on defense as well. So another game with a really high over-under here, 53 points. The Bills are only projected to win by 3, which I'm not really sure why. Vegas seems to like the Raiders at home. Again, we saw on Monday night, there were a lot of flags that went their way in week 2 when they're at home. So maybe Vegas having a football team is not the best idea. We'll see if any shenanigans happen like that again, but I'm obviously just joking here. So the Bills have actually been a really good defense to play against, which is a little bit opposite of what we expected heading into the year. Prior in 2019, we saw the Bills were a defense that you wanted to avoid, whereas now the Bills are a defense you kind of want to exploit. So they're giving up the 9th most points to quarterbacks, the 9th most points to wide receivers, the 10th most to tight ends. They've been a little bit better against the run, but I think that's because teams have had to throw the ball against them because Josh Allen has been putting up so many points. The Raiders have been decent, as I mentioned, against every position except for the running back. They have given up like top end numbers to the running back 3 weeks in a row. Yes, they did play Christian McCaffrey. Yes, they did play Alvin Kamara in week 2. So it's to be expected that they give up a lot of points, but then they gave up a 30-point game to Rex Burkhead last week. So maybe at some point we just have to question whether or not the Raiders are a bad run defense. So we're going to, of course, keep that in mind, even though when it turned in terms of how we look at the Bills, obviously Josh Allen is the running back one there, but Devin Singletary should have himself a nice game. So let's talk about the Bills first. Of course, you're starting Josh Allen. He's been on such a hot streak. He's done everything and more that you could have expected from where you drafted him. So you're going to stay in the flames there. As we mentioned, the Raiders are the worst defense in terms of stopping the run. So we'll throw Devin Singletary out. Looks like Zach Moss could miss another week, making that target and touch concentration go way more towards Singletary. Just don't expect any goal line carries. Stephon Diggs has been another wonderful surprise, drafting him late. He probably should have gotten drafted quite a few rounds before where he did. So you're ecstatic if you drafted Stephon Diggs. I think this is going to be another good week for him. Now, the question is, will John Brown play? The way that it's trending right now, I'm going to say no. So if John Brown is out, I think you can slot Cole Beasley in. And if you're in an absolute pinch, I think you can throw Gabriel Davis out there, although I've tried to avoid it if you can. I just know with 2 teams randomly having a bye week, you're probably going to have to play some names that you weren't looking at playing heading into this week. So Gabriel Davis is a guy to check out on your waiver wire if you're in need. Bills defense are a really good start here. I still don't believe in the Raiders. I know they won their first 2 games, but the Panthers defense hasn't really been that great. The game against the Saints was a bit of a surprise for me, but then seeing the way they played against the Patriots last week was a bit more what I was expecting. So I don't know. They're at home, so it could be a close game. Vegas thinks it's going to be a close game. I just don't buy it. So I think the Bills defense are a strong play here. I know I said don't start Tyler Kroft last week. I apologize. There was no way I could have guessed that he was going to throw 2 touchdowns, but hey, that's how it goes. So are you going to throw Tyler Kroft back out there? Absolutely not. Unless you're in an absolute desperate situation, you are truly just chasing points at that moment, and there's no guarantee that he even sees anything this week. So trying to avoid that situation there. And then, like I said, I think Zach Moss is out, so TJ Yeldon would be the backup, but he barely saw the ball at all on Sunday, so we're not even considering his name at this point. On the Raiders side, Josh Jacobs has had that really good week 1 and then has been disappointing. It's basically the exact way that we predicted it. This was one of the calls that we've been pretty spot on about Josh Jacobs. We knew he was going to have a good game against Carolina because Carolina hasn't been able to stop running backs for a long time. So Josh Jacobs blows up. We recommend you sell high. If you're still stuck with him, you're kind of got to ride it out now. So the Bills have actually been better against the run than the pass. So this could be another down week for Jacobs, but it's not like you can bench him. There's so many injuries to the running back position. You're pretty much stuck. I don't imagine you have a situation where you can actually talk yourself out of starting him. And he'll probably still finish, in the running back 2 category. Now, Hunter Renfrow is a really interesting name here with both Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards leaning towards being out this week. Hunter Renfrow was the number 1 target for Derek Carr last week. He plays predominantly in the slot. Tre'Davious White does not typically go and cover people in the slot, so he probably won't be looking out towards Renfrow's way as long as he stays in the slot. And the Bills have given up quite a few fantasy points. We just saw Cooper Kupp have an explosion game against the Bills playing out of the slot. So Hunter Renfrow is a really sneaky start this week. I don't even feel like that is something that you have to convince me to put into your lineup. He's at least a wide receiver 3 with plenty of upside this week. Darren Waller, of course, you're going to be starting Darren Waller. He had a down week last week, but don't expect that to happen again. Bills are surrendering a lot of points to tight ends. Derek Carr, probably don't have to play him unless you're in a 2 quarterback league. I do think there would be enough points scored here that you can consider him in that format, but not in a single quarterback league. And then Foster Moreau, you're literally just chasing the potential for a touchdown. So basically the same as Tyler Kroft. We're not going to be chasing those points. No one else here on the Raiders I'm remotely interested in. The target split outside of Hunter Renfrow just is absolute garbage. And I do think the Bills win this one a bit wider of a margin than Vegas is expecting. I have the Bills winning this one 35 to the Raiders scoring 24. All right, let's jump into and talk about the Sunday night game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. The 0-2-1 Eagles versus the 2-1 49ers. Boo. This game between the, maybe with the exception of the Broncos, the two most injured teams up to this point. So the Eagles had their injury report today. They literally only had Greg Ward practicing. Every other wide receiver was a DNP on Thursday. We'll see if that changes on Friday. Dallas Goedert is out. I mean, the target consolidation between the top end guys here, it makes it really easy to decide who to start in this one. But man, does Carson Wentz need to have a bounce back game, and it's going to be really hard for him to do that without his weapons. Whereas the 49ers, we know, are completely decimated on both sides of the ball. We'll see what happens this week. So I'm trending towards assuming that Mostert is out this week, but we'll see if that changes tomorrow. And I'll make a note when we go over the starts and sits, but 46 over under, one of the lower over unders on the week. The 49ers are given a favored points of 7. So implied points 26.5 to the Eagles, 19.5. The Eagles have been average on defense, giving up the 18th most points to quarterbacks. A little bit better at slowing down the run than the pass. That's basically the same trend that they had last year, whereas the 49ers have been pretty good on defense, but they haven't played anyone outside of the Cardinals, and they weren't really good against the Cardinals in week 1, but then they played the Jets and the Giants, so you'd expect them to have better performances. So I think these numbers are a little bit skewed for the 49ers, especially considering the amount of star pieces that they are missing. So that being said, I'm not really nervous about either of these defenses. I don't know that this will be a shootout by any means, but I don't look at the matchup and say, oh no, you can't start anybody on the Eagles side because they're playing the 49ers. Their defense is not what it was last year, and hopefully Carson Wentz recognizes the urgency of having to have a good week this week. So on the Eagles side, you're going to be starting Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is currently averaging the 12th most points per game at running backs, and he really should be much higher when you consider last week. He should have had a 50-yard touchdown bomb that Carson Wentz has completely missed on him. He's averaging like over 80% of the running back touches, which is the workhorse that you want. He is seeing a ton of work, and eventually he's going to come through with like a 30-point splash game. So this could be the week the 49ers surrender the most points that Kenny Drake has seen all season. So I'm hoping for a good game from Miles Sanders. Greg Ward, as we mentioned, is literally the only healthy receiver as of Thursday. I think I think Arcega-Whiteside and Hightower will end up playing this week, but Greg Ward saw a ton of targets last week. He's really the only guy that Carson Wentz can trust at this point. Till they get Alshon Jeffrey and Jalen Reagor back, Greg Ward is going to see a ton of targets, as will Zach Ertz. So all these guys are good plays. Don't give yourself the potential brain hemorrhage of playing Carson Wentz this week. In the Eagles defense, even against Nick Mullins, I'm not gonna rush out and do that. I'm not playing any of the other peripheral options here. It's Sanders, Ward, and Ertz or bust for me. On the 49ers side, I was making this with the assumption that Raheem Mostert is out. I think Jerick McKinnon will play, but of course he's also questionable. So there's quite a few up in the air situations here. It makes it really murky for the 49ers backfield. Basically, the way I see it here is if they are comfortable with starting these players, you're going to start them yourself. So if Raheem Mostert is active, then you're going to play Mostert. If McKinnon is active, you'll play McKinnon. If both of them are out, that's the only time I'm going to be playing Jeff Wilson. But as long as McKinnon or Mostert or both are active, I'm keeping hands off Jeff Wilson. He wasn't able to get anything done on the ground. He just lucked into a touchdown through the air, so don't want to deal with that situation. But Jerick McKinnon has looked really explosive, and obviously Raheem Mostert has been really good up to this point. So I'm comfortable playing either of those guys if they're active. George Kittle looks like he's going to be a full go, so he's going to end up being the number one receiver on this team. So it's going to be battle of the tight ends here between Kittle and Ertz. Like Kittle a lot coming back this week. 49ers defense make for a decent play. Carson Wentz has thrown 2 interceptions every single game this year. We'll see if he can keep that trend up going into Sunday night, but the 49ers defense should be a pretty interesting fantasy play. Not going to talk you into playing Nick Mullins, or I mentioned Jeff Wilson already as someone that I would try to bench. Only way I'm playing him is if all the other running backs ahead of him are out. Brandon Ayuk had a really good game last week, but I think this is going to be more of a Kittle show. I'm not sure that he's going to see the same amount of touches. You can talk me into it if you have a deep enough league, or if you had enough players that you had to throw on the bench due to the Titans-Steelers game getting canceled, but probably going to try to find another option there. Same thing with Kendrick Bourne. Not playing any of the other wide receivers here either. So I do think this would be a lower scoring affair, and I know I'm going to get impaled for this one, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but I actually think the Eagles pull this one out. I'm calling for the upset. The Eagles finally get things right. It's the game that everyone's counting them out, and that's when they normally dig into their underdog self, turn things around. I got the Eagles winning this one 20-17. Don't at me. All right, let's talk about the final game, the Monday night game between the Atlanta Falcons and the Green Bay Packers. Let's see if the Falcons can find a way to have a lead and choke it away in the fourth quarter for 3 weeks straight. The fact that Dan Quinn is still the coach of the Falcons is a little bit surprising, but if the Falcons lose yet another game, they will go full-scale tank, and I would be surprised if they didn't try to start shipping off some of their big-name players. So keep an eye out for that. I know there's been some rumors there. It's just rumors at this point, but definitely monitor that situation. So what do we know about this game? Well, highest over-under on the week. We've got 56.5 point over-under here. The implied point totals of the Packers scoring 32 to the 24.5 for the Falcons. Packers are favored by 7.5 points. The Falcons are surrendering the most points to fantasy quarterbacks, the second most to fantasy tight ends, and the third most to fantasy receivers, and they're right in the middle in terms of fantasy points against running backs. Packers also are giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks and running backs, a little bit better against tight ends, although they haven't played many tough tight end battles yet, and they're giving up an average number against wide receivers. So both below average defenses here, especially the Falcons, one of the worst defenses here. So there's going to be a lot of fantasy points scored. And fortunately, at least on the Packers side, target consolidation is pretty easy to tell, especially with Allen Lazard being out. Pour one out for him, getting core surgery after finally having a breakout game. Sucks for the Packers. Looks like they're going to get Devontae Adams back, which is good. But Allen Lazard was finally showing that he was taking some big steps forward, and he's going to be out for a while. So on the Falcons side, I mean, this is pretty easy. You're going to play Ryan. I think you can play Gurley in this one. I know Gurley has been pretty disappointing, but he did score the touchdown last week. Look for him to have an okay game this week. If you haven't sold him yet, you should probably try to do that before this week. But if you don't have time, or you don't manage to find a buyer, you can probably throw him out one more time, and then next week is the week you must sell high if Gurley has another good week. Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, of course you're playing both of those guys. Julio looks to be active this week, and I really like Hayden Hurst in this one. I know the Packers have been a little bit better against tight ends, but again, they haven't faced anyone that great. Russell Gage is someone that I would try to avoid playing. Coming back off of that injury, I'm not sure how effective he's going to be, but look and watch him have a really good game. So if you're in a pickle and don't have any other players, he's a fine wide receiver for play. I'm not going to chase points with Brian Hill though. Yes, he scored the long touchdown last week, but he's not getting consistent enough touches to actually warrant a start yet at this point. And on the Packers side, this is really easy. We're going to start Rodgers. We're going to start Aaron Jones. We're going to start Devontae Adams. You could talk me into playing either Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Robert Tonyan. Based on your situation, you might need to throw them in as a flex spot. I think one of those guys would probably have a decent game. You might even be able to convince me to play Jamal Williams if you're really hurting at running back. But none of these guys are people I'd be happy rolling into my lineup in week 4. Those are more just panic friends. I need a flex spot and I got no other option. Someone will probably have a good game, but good luck guessing which one. And the Packers defense, maybe you can convince me there, but I think this is going to be a high scoring affair between the two teams. So probably not playing either defense in this one. Got the Packers winning this one decisively. I got them winning 34-24, and the Falcons will fall to 0-4. Whew. All right, guys. Well, that is it. We've covered all 15 games on the slate this week. Good luck to you. Make sure you hit me up in the comment section with any start, sit, or trade questions you have. Again, good luck to you this week. Thank you for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.